Uh, Thanks again for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak here. This is my third time. What a great honor to be with all of you. I'm so happy and thankful for this great invitation. The first time, I cried pretty much most of the time. I'm not sure how many people remember that, but I was trying to talk about the Anzac child, and my good friend Jeannie Moe had asked me to come in. And so for those of you who don't know about the Anzac child, that was the 12,600-year-old child that had been found over by Wilsall, and I helped with the reburial with that, and so that was an important, wonderful time. And then the last time was actually January 26th, 2019. What a different world it was back then, huh? So that's the last time I spoke here, and so many of you probably remember I kind of gave a rousing speech about Genghis Khan. Not sure how well it was received, but it was an opportunity. I tried to speak about the crazy mountains, and I was also speaking about the ancient oral traditions too of native peoples of the Great Plains, and also I guess of the steppe, Mongolian steppe. Have a lot of similar cultural characteristics. And then I was asked to come in today and sat down with Duffy and my good friend there, and we talked about the theme resistance, and how I could speak about that topic. And yeah, okay, cool, thank you. Sorry about that. And just thought, well, there's a lot of different ways to speak about this topic, but one way I think I might feel more comfortable about is kind of reflecting on history and some of the amazing people who have lived through similar times of upheaval, uncertainty, dismay, violence, and of course our history is filled with all of that, and the people who have persevered and found a way to leave their particular circle better than how they entered into it. And a few of those come to mind. One of them, of course, is from my own tribe, my own community. My great-great-grandmother, who I speak about frequently, who was from this region and born just over the Bozeman Pass there, actually over in the Judith Gap area. And so her life story is very interesting. She was born in 1850. At that time, there was no gold discovery here in Montana. There was only a discovery in California, so it had kind of begun to open the West. And so, her great-grandfather, or her grandfather was a signer on the Treaty of 1851 that established the Crow Indian Reservation, a 30 million acre reservation. And then when she was 16 years old, the reservation shrank from 30 million to 12 million. And she was married then to an Irishman, and then moved from the Livingston area over to Columbus area, getting moved to the west, or to the east. And she had 7 children. And the reservation continued to shrink throughout her lifetime. And so now she's buried. When she died, the reservation had shrunk to 2.3 million acres. So in her lifetime, she saw the reservation shrink in her lifetime from 30 million acres to 2.3 million. She died in 1934. And so she lived through a lot, and she saw her community live through a lot. And it's interesting, one of the very last things she did before she died, she gave her land, some of her land away to the Stillwater County. Would you do that? If you had seen your entire nation shrink 90%, would one of the very last things that you did, would it be to give away some of your personal land to white people? I'm not really sure I would, but that's what she chose to do, and I always, wonder, I wish I could have a conversation with her and ask her what she was thinking and what was in her heart, but I feel like it was a form of resistance for her. She went through a lot, I don't want to tell her whole life story, but she endured a lot. She was an amazing person. And then her cousin, as it turns out, her first cousin kind of had a similar life, but his was much more famous and internationally well known. And his name was, as we call him today, Chief Plinnycoos. And so he was born about the same year as her, in 1850. And he was born around in Billings. And, his life was a charmed life. When he was 7 years old, he had his first vision, fasted. And then when he was 9 years old, he had his big dream on Crazy Peak. And he had fasted for 4 days and nights as a 9-year-old boy. And still didn't have his dream, and so he cut off the tip of his index finger on his left hand, so he would finally have his dream. This is a 9-year-old boy, and he had a charmed life, needless to say, all along. That dream was very important that he had there, but then all along his life, he played incredibly important roles throughout the unfolding of Montana's history. And he saw the reservation shrink as well, from 30 million acres to 2.3 million. And he was active in all of the major events here during the Indian Wars, including the Battle of the Rosebud, where he is credited with saving the lives of hundreds of men. And when he got to in his 70s, he was asked to come to Washington, D.C. to speak at the tomb of the unknown soldier. The dedication of the tomb of the unknown soldier, and it was there that he took off his war bonnet and his coup stick, and he laid it at the tomb of the unknown soldier in his sash. And he said, I make a prayer that there will be no more wars ever again. And if you go to Arlington, you'll see in the display case, there's still his war bonnet, his coup stick, his sash is still there. But while he was in Washington, D.C., he went to George Washington's estate, Mount Vernon. Excuse me. And then it was there that he got the idea to give away his land. So when he died, he left his house and all of his land to the state of Montana. It's kind of a remarkable story, really. Sorry to get emotional, but I am kind of that way. But he, had one of those lives where he was trying to do more than, I think, the average person, right? And his form of resistance, again, was to be generous, to try to be a cultural bridge, and to try to serve the role that whatever it was that he had been thrust upon him. They say greatness is, the old saying about greatness, some people are born into it. Some have it thrust upon them. I would say with Plinnycoos and people like my great-grandmother, it was all those things. And even though like some of the greatest powers in world history were working against them. You know, if you think about the settlement of the American West, how many times in history have we seen that kind of power unfold? You know, how many times have we seen that kind of, you know, might and momentum and desire and, you know, unstoppable humanity pouring out onto a landscape? You know, we've never seen anything like it, like the colonization of the American West. And that's what these Indians were up against and facing up against, but somehow it didn't beat them. You know, and then, you know, in today's world too, you know, we think every day, you know, this, today, you know, we have forces out there trying to splinter us and, you know, defeat our solidarity and destroy all the progress we've made as democratic, free-thinking society. And, you know, it's not enough, I know, just to say we're not going to let them get us down, because it's more than just about us not getting down. It's about, you know, trying to find a way to push back and create a space for those who are less fortunate than us, because we know many people right now are getting apprehended, maybe not necessarily in Bozeman, but in our country, our citizens, our neighbors. And it's hard to know what to do to resist all that. I think, you know, we all have to find our own way, but I think one of the things that I do all the time is look to history and look to people like that who found ways to resist that were nonviolent, and, you know, also honoring Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, or yeah, it is his birthday, and the day in his name, what he meant to this country, what he meant to our society, and how all those things that he stood for are under threat right now. And so it's hard not to get emotional about it. And I think, you know, finding resistance, ways to resist in our professional lives is hard, but carving out space for our colleagues to talk about these things and finding ways to make our voices heard. You know, there's a lot of different things we can do, and MLK was a great, you know, leader in that way for us to learn from him and what he did, and again, also those people local here that maybe are not quite so famous, but also resisted in ways that inspire us still today, and to want to love one another and heal the wounds that you know, previous generations and even today's generations continue to inflict on each other. So I guess to sum it all up, you know, love is the greatest form of resistance. And, you know, just coming in here and listening to, you know, the creed of the UUF and, you know, the words and what they really mean, it's just so powerful. So I want to sum up finally, in true Northern Plains Indian fashion. And, you know, I want to ask you a question, you know, why are there no knock-knock jokes about the American Revolution? Because freedom always rings. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. And again, thank you for the invitation to come in here and just share a ceremonial time with all of you to give thanks and to reflect and to enjoy one another's company and to hopefully leave here in a way that will help us to continue to be lights for one another and for ourselves in this time where we really need it. So thank you. Oh.